Hi, welcome to 24/7 Magazine's webinar, The Future of Service, How Machine Data, Software, and Analytics Impact Healthcare Technology Management, sponsored by GE Healthcare. I'm Carrie Forsyth-Stevens, the editor of 24/7 Magazine and your host. I'm here with two excellent speakers, Sharon James, GE Healthcare's Service Marketing Manager, and Jason Schneck, General Manager of Service Sales and Software and Analytics at GE Healthcare. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you to the first speaker, Sharon James.
Thank you, Carrie. Hello, everyone. My name is Sharon James, and I'm a marketing manager with GE Healthcare. At GE Healthcare, I lead the software analytics and cybersecurity portfolio. I know this topic, the future of service, is on everybody's minds, and so I'm excited to be part of this webinar. I'll play the role of the facilitator today, and I'll be asking our expert, Jason, the questions. Hey, Jason, you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks, Sharon. My name is Jason Schneck. I'm the general manager of our commercial services business in the Western U.S. I also lead our software and analytics platform across our U.S. and Canada markets. I've been in the healthcare space for over 21 years and certainly excited about some of the new products, the changes that we're seeing in the healthcare technology management industry today.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks for the introduction. So in today's webinar, we'll touch on a few things. Number one, we'll start with kind of the basics. So we'll do an analytics 101 in this healthcare technology management world. And then I'll ask Jason some questions around kind of the opportunities into kind of the day-to-day operations where some of this analytics can be applied. And then we kind of close out the webinar with some proof, some evidence around, you know, what is working around analytics in the healthcare organizations for this analytics solutions. Okay, so let's get the first question going here. And Jason, I thought what we could do here is my first question is going to be a little bit around setting the context before we kind of get deeper into the analytics discussion. So in recent times, there's been this buzz, there's been a lot of activity around technology, around, you know, digitization in the healthcare world. And some stuff has been written around analytics and how you can harness that data. So can you help us set context around why is it relevant today more than it has been before?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon, and I think it's a great place for us to start. And I think the flat answer is our healthcare industry is demanding change. And if you think about it, the way technology has been acquired and the way it's been managed over the last 25 years in our industry has fundamentally remained unchanged. We do things very similar. We buy technology, we manage it for a life of 8 to 12 years, we retire it and we purchase another. In today's environment, from a cost perspective, the amount of regulatory oversight, the focus on the patient experience, fundamentally, again, we need change. And I kind of look to 4 or 5 different trends that we see in the marketplace today that are making now the time. You know, the first one is, you know, over the last 5 years, we've seen tremendous consolidation across our industry. You know, that consolidation is now leading to true integration of operations, standardization of technology and fleets. So there's never been a better time for us to look at how do we bring some of these ideas around analytics together to really drive a different outcome for our industry. You know, the second one that I'll talk to is really this idea where we're seeing a convergence of traditional IT devices and clinical devices in our industry. The wall has come down, and there's a big gray space in between traditional IT and traditional clinical, where software, clinical networks, the way these machines function are very much like IT systems, and ideas like security and vulnerability are very important. Analytics can play a huge role in helping us really transform the way that we manage our technology installed base across both IT and clinical devices. Another one that I'll talk about is just the cost pressures that exist and this need every year for us to develop and deliver cost productivity to our organizations. And much of this is tied to this idea of proliferation of devices. You know, we have historically poor utilization of technology across the healthcare industry. So solving for cost pressures is not only looking at how do we get more efficient in the way that we manage technology, but also how do we drive improved utilization so that we can fundamentally understand and control the number of devices that we have across our industry, and what does it really take for us to drive efficient patient care. And then the last one I'll just talk to is the complexity of our environment. You know, regulatory pressures, oversight, the world at which we operate in. There's a new level of transparency and complexity that we all need to deal with. Analytics, sharing of data, integration of systems can all help us deal with this environment. But the bottom line is now is the time. The industry is demanding it. We need to be more focused than ever in leveraging new tools and capabilities to drive a different environment for healthcare across the board.
Oh, that's a great answer. That makes a whole lot of sense. So Jason, just continuing with this theme of setting the context, another question is, you know, analytics can be a very broad term. Analytics applies to industries outside healthcare. So just for our listeners, so they understand this better, what is analytics kind of in this healthcare technology management world? What does that mean? Could you help us understand that a little bit better?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. And I think from our perspective, when we talk about analytics, there's, you know, three key things that we're trying to capture. One is machine data, so all this information that our systems tell us is going on with them from a performance standpoint. The second one is process data, so all this information that we collect from servicing technology and looking at different service events across it. And then the third thing is intelligent algorithms, so really these predictive tools that'll tell us from all this data what is happening. And the goal from those three key things is how do we derive actionable insights? You know, a good way to think about this is we talk about analytics in kind of three key areas: descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive analytics. And a good way to summarize that, you know, descriptive analytics is very much like a Google map. It allows you to look at something in a static location and to locate it. When you get into predictive analytics, you're basically leveraging Google Maps to get directions. It'll tell you how to do something, what path you should follow. When we get into this world of really interactive prescriptive, it's almost think about a Waze application, really understanding, you know, while you're in process, what decisions you should make. If you're driving, how do I avoid traffic and accident? You know, go a different direction. Again, it's really real-time providing insights to help you make a better decision. You know, it's very much similar. You know, we're doing the same thing if you look at the history of remote diagnostics. You know, traditionally, you know, when we first started, we were looking at error codes and downloading them from systems to really help us get perspective on troubleshooting. You know, from there we moved to bidirectional software sharing with systems, evaluating image quality, being able to upload different solutions to our systems. And now we're in this world of predictive monitoring where we're pulling critical system information off our technology so that we can predict when it might fail to drive really a better experience, better uptime for our patients. So that's really a great way, I think, to think about this evolution of analytics in our healthcare technology management space.
Excellent. Thank you, Jason. I think that analogy really helped understand analytics and the different kinds of analytics. So thank you for that analogy. So now that we have set up context, you know, let's take a question where we can go one level down. So you mentioned, you know, descriptive analytics, and I'm curious. You know, we have had CMMS, computerized maintenance management software, in the HTM world for some time now. So is it similar to that, or is it different? Is CMMS going away?
Yeah, great question, Sharon. And I think actually quite the contrary, right? I don't see that CMMS platforms in their traditional sense go away. In fact, I think it's the contrary. I think they become more important. But what we see across the industry today is really the evolution from, you know, more siloed CMMS platforms into what we talk about enterprise asset management, platforms that have the ability to truly help manage assets and technologies across the entire healthcare system, not only in the clinical space, but in the IT space, facilities, environmental space. So we see a lot of that consolidation across the industry. I think when we look at those platforms that are really transforming the way that we deliver service, there's a couple things that I would note. First off, integration capabilities. So I talked earlier about this consolidation and the integration of healthcare systems that's happening today. Integration capabilities of data platforms is more important than ever. So when you think about enterprise asset management, the ability to integrate different platforms together, looking at ECRI, ERP systems, whether that be Lawson or PeopleSoft, RTLS systems. But what we're really trying to do is put all the data into our clinical engineers and our diagnostic engineers, put it in their hands in the environment that they work with on a day-to-day basis. The second piece is cloud-based platforms that work well in mobile environments. For too long, our technicians have been trapped and kind of tied to their desk to computer screens, but really making sure that we've got full mobile capabilities that are required in our environment today. Another thing that I would offer is this ability to crowdsource and gather knowledge. Every time something breaks or it is fixed, we have the opportunity to harness that knowledge so that we get smarter as an industry going forward. But how do you really collect those problem solution database type knowledge instances and make sure that every time we see a problem, we get better, we get more efficient in solving that. So I think that's just some of the current trends that we see. Again, data platforms with the scale of our industry, the scale of some of our programs in the healthcare technology space is getting more and more important. And we're seeing a lot of evolution in the capabilities that exist in the marketplace today.
Thank you, Jason. Yep, that helps me understand. Looks like we are going to do much more than CMMS here in the future. So we talked about descriptive analytics. Looks like the next logical step is predictive analytics, just like the analogy you used with Google Maps. So, Jason, again, could you help us, maybe give us some examples and help the listeners understand what does predictive analytics mean in the healthcare technology world?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. And I go back to what we discussed earlier, which, in this analytics space, there's really three things that we're trying to harness. The first one being machine data and all that information that our technology tells us really on a minute-by-minute basis. The second one is process data, so all the information and analytics that we can glean from service events and from managing our technology on a day-to-day basis. And then the third piece is algorithms that really process that data and help us drive a better service outcome, a more efficient service outcome. So those are really the three key inputs. When we talk about this idea of reactive to proactive, really what we're evolving to is consistently on a constant basis pulling machine data from our systems, taking that system performance information, and we put them through algorithms that we know predict potential failures in our systems. Once we have that potential failure, we have the ability to order a part proactively, provide support or dispatch a technician to a site. But it's really about, as opposed to waiting for something to fail and having to react to it, going to troubleshoot the problem, getting in a static environment and ordering a part, how do we connect the dots across this paradigm in a more effective way? Again, it's that connectivity of machine data, process data that we've collected, and then really getting more intelligent about the way we process that, learning consistently and constantly through our processes the way that we get better. Another area that we're investing a lot in, we're seeing a lot of progress in the marketplace, is this idea of system health notification. So we've invested in building applications that notify our customers when a system could potentially fail. Now, we don't only track system performance metrics, we're also tracking environmental conditions that could tell you when humidity level or temperature level were beyond required specifications, or other things that were happening in a technology environment that may cause a premature failure. So those are just some of the things that I think are really going to transform this idea of getting from descriptive analytics environment to really enable healthcare technology management to be more predictive in the way that we deliver service. And ultimately, the goal there is to drive a better service outcome. So we've talked about more equipment uptime, a better patient experience, and obviously lower costs in the environment that we're dealing with today.
Thank you, Jason. So now that we are kind of through this section where you've helped us understand and the listeners understand the kind of the basics of analytics, the different kinds of analytics, I'm curious, and I'm sure the listeners are too, as to where do these opportunities on applying analytics lie within kind of the day-to-day operations of a healthcare organization? Could you maybe give us some examples as to where HTMs can benefit from this power of data and analytics?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon. And I'll talk to a couple here on this page, and appreciate any questions that might come up at the end of this program. But a couple here. The first one is increased equipment uptime. And I talked earlier about some of the trends that we see across the industry today, and this idea of proliferation of technology across our industry and low utilization rates of technology is something that we're both trying to solve for. Now, in parallel to that, equipment uptime is a huge satisfier for not only our patients, but our clinicians in their environment. So ultimately what we're trying to do is create a better patient experience by driving more equipment uptime. And if we've got equipment that is more reliable, that works better across your hospitals, we can use less of it. And that's really one of the things that we're after, is not only through equipment uptime to drive a better experience, but helping make sure that we've got the right level of technology, the right amount of technology in our hospitals to deliver the needed patient care. That's a huge driver of cost, both on the capital and operational side across the industry. And I think that's one key way to think about outcomes where this analytics world can really change our healthcare environment. The second, another great, I think, application of software and technology to create efficiencies is asset tracking and RTLS. And we've invested in this as a company, really seeing as a way to not only create a better service experience for our biomed and imaging engineers, but also to create a lot of efficiencies across our business. So really leveraging new types of RTLS platforms, lower cost, less invasive, better data integration capabilities is helping us drive a different kind of outcome from a cost perspective, from a quality of our service, and really streamlining the way that we're able to deliver service. And I think a lot of these applications and tools really help us triage service calls better. We talked earlier about the evolution of enterprise asset management platforms. You combine some of those new data management platforms with RTLS, and you really have a completely new way to triage service events throughout a hospital. If you know where your technicians are, and if they're on a department and a floor, and they recognize that, hey, there's 3 things that need to be resolved while I'm here, RTLS can help tell them that. Their enterprise asset management system can help tell them that. They become more efficient where they're taking care of 2, 3, 4 events that might exist in a particular department while they only need to make 1 trip. Another great analogy, I think, when we think about the application and a different outcome, I'm sure many of us have ordered a pizza from Domino's recently, and you have the application that shows you from the time that you place your order, when your pizza is going in the oven, when it's coming out, when the delivery driver has left the store, and ultimately when it's going to arrive on your front porch. Really what the Domino's has become is, they're a technology company that happens to make pizza. But this whole technology experience, I think, is a great analogy in the way that we want to be able to deliver service to our directors and to our departments. So this lack of communication, or this gap in communication, no longer exists, but everyone has access to a service event. What's happening? When will my part be here? When will my system be back up so I can begin or resume delivering patient care, which is really ultimately what we all want to make sure that we're able to do. So again, just a high-level overview of, I think, some of the outcomes, some of the changes that this investment in technology can really make in our healthcare technology management environment.
So Jason, just a follow-up question. You mentioned a couple of solutions there, RTLS, the enterprise asset management software. Is it meant to be specific to the OEM, or is it meant to be vendor agnostic? How's GE kind of thinking about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're thinking about this in a very, I would say, vendor agnostic environment. And when I go out and I talk with organizations and I talk with people in the healthcare technology management world, I guess what I hear every day is, GE no longer take me to 15 different websites that are very GE specific to get information, to get documentation, to order parts. Because I understand the environment is every OEM or every provider out there has their different set of websites and tools that they try to send our partners to. And really the message that we've received is help us work in our environment. So make your tools integrate in our platforms. Give us access in the screens that we work in on a day-to-day basis. So we've taken steps in that direction. I think it's really working horizontally across the industry to connect our solutions. That's really what is going to change the game, create efficiencies that are sustainable for our partners.
That's great. That's good news. I'm sure the listeners are happy to hear that. So Jason, now that we have piqued the interest of our listeners, and hopefully they're all excited to hear about all this new technology which is going to change their daily lives, are you seeing some proof or evidence around this transformation, this digital transformation? Can you speak to, based on your experience with customers, some of those outcomes, some of those proof points?
Absolutely, Sharon. And I guess I'll start by commenting on, we're tracking a lot of these ideas and metrics very closely with our business. I mean, ultimately, we run a very large service organization, and creating new tools and productivity is important to us. And we've really increased our visibility to, are we making progress? What are the data points that we're collecting, just so that we ensure where we're investing and the tools that we're deploying are working. Here's a couple just things that we've seen across our business and we've seen with some of our partners. The first one is, a 32% reduction in unplanned downtime. So really deploying some predictive analytic tools to our technology, reducing unplanned uptime by up to 32%. That's a third of the time of unplanned events we've been able to eliminate and accelerate a lot of other service events. That is a tremendous accomplishment, and it really, the clinicians from planning your workday, a lot of good things happen when we can eliminate unplanned downtime. The other data point on this is really creating up to 12% of labor productivity, and this is really by leveraging RTLS to reduce search time for equipment. We talked about new data platforms that integrate information for technicians and field engineers to find things in an easier way. Again, access to data, access to information, really triaging service calls in a different way, having location information integrated into enterprise asset management platforms. We're really starting to see some benefit from a productivity standpoint. The other thing that I'll talk to that I think is very important to us, we have this trend that we like to call the silver tsunami, which is we predict over the next 5 years in our organization we'll have close to 1,000 engineers that are looking at potential retirement. We have a tremendous amount of knowledge and people that we're replacing, developing new talent across our service teams, and really giving them new tools, first off, to make sure that they can have access to the information that they need. Secondly, to help us knowledge transfer, really a tremendous amount of institutional knowledge that when individuals retire, we sometimes lose. But how do we share that across our organization in different ways? And then, quite frankly, create a better balance of life for a lot of our imaging and biomed technicians that are out there. These are some of the best and brightest in the industry. They work very long hours. They're on call a lot. With technology, if we can be more efficient in the way we deliver, we're going to create a better, really work-life balance for everyone in the industry. So these are some of the very real, tangible things that we're seeing through these investments. And they have the potential, again, to really help us drive a different outcome from a quality standpoint, equipment uptime, satisfaction standpoint with our departments, and ultimately a better cost outcome that we're all after.
So that was great, Jason. So if the listeners are looking to kind of start their journey around this digital transformation, everything you've been talking about, where do they kind of take their first step, right? How do they, talk to their management to get something started? Do you have some recommendations for the listeners today?
Yeah, absolutely, Sharon, and thanks for the question. I think it's been a great dialogue. The first thing I would say is change is going to be driven by the industry, right? So start talking with your peers about it. Start talking with your organizations. Recognize the need that we absolutely need to change. And in order to drive the kind of efficiencies and change that we need, we're going to need new tools. We're going to need access to data. We're going to need access to analytics in a different way. So I would say, first off, again, just share what you have learned today. Invite your peers to listen, and start to engage in the dialogue with one another. I think that's the first step. The second one is start to get out there and ask questions. We've got great industry events where tremendous opportunity to share knowledge and ask questions and be curious about what's happening out there. Amy, we have RSNA coming up here in a couple of weeks. We have a lot of local organizations that we support to share information, to share where we're investing, where we're seeing opportunity from a healthcare technology management perspective. And the last thing that I would say is really leverage your manufacturing partners, your OEMs, your other service partners. Invite them in to have a conversation about this. Feel free to reach out to myself or Sharon or really anyone in the GE organization to come out and talk to you. We're absolutely not going to try to sell you anything. This is more about education. Like I said earlier, we have a vested interest in a lot of these tools to help make our service business better. But I think that sharing and dialogue, that communication, the perspective from the industry of what do you need, what would truly be helpful, helps us to get better from an investment standpoint with the tools that we are developing. So again, it's not just a GE thing. Your other OEMs, your other partners, they all have a point of view and a perspective on this. We're going to drive changes in industry, and I think we need to get out there and start talking about it. So I think that's really what it's about. It's going to come from us collectively all working together.
Hey, thank you, Jason. Thank you for giving us the time and the opportunity to interview you. We asked you a lot of questions, and I know I learned a lot. So I'm hoping the listeners feel the same way, and we have piqued their interest, and they'll reach out to us or their peers in asking some of these questions. To the listeners out there, thank you for investing the time in listening to this webinar. So what we learned here in this session of the webinar, we started with the basics of data and analytics. Jason talked about analytics simply being, machine data with algorithms to give you some actionable insights. So simplest definition of analytics for healthcare technology managers. And then he described the descriptive, predictive, and the prescriptive type of analytics and used the Google Maps analogy to kind of help us understand what that meant. We went into the next section, which was around just the opportunities for HTMs. And he took a few examples to lead us through that. He talked about equipment uptime and utilization as an important one, and kind of the overall service experience. How do we use analytics to better the day-to-day operations of the HTM? And then we finally closed it out with some proof points, some evidence that analytics is actually working and turning into measurable outcomes. So that's what we did this session. You can always reach out to us. We have our emails listed here on the slide. We also have a dedicated page to HTMs on our GE Healthcare website, so we would love for you to visit that and find more information. I've had fun hosting this webinar and being the facilitator. I look forward to another opportunity here, but thank you to 24/7. And Kerry, thank you so much for hosting us.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I want to conclude by saying thank you to our presenters, both of whom did a wonderful job, as well as our sponsor, GE Healthcare. You may rewatch this webinar for free anytime in the next year using the same link you used to log on today. Also, please email me at kstevens, and that's Stevens with a PH at Medcor, and that's medqor.com, with comments, questions, and future webinar suggestions. And also, please be sure to visit us at www.24x7mag.com. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.